I'm making a new costume for my character, the Lady Catherine, and this time it's going to be a gown that would have been fashionable in the very last years of her life, and she died in 1594. When I make costumes for her, I always spend a long time on what I call the underpinnings. It's not enough for me to create something that looks all right on the outside. I really need to understand how the clothes are constructed and what it feels like to wear them. And that really helps a lot in bringing the character to life. So I've spent a long time on the pair of bodies. So I'm going to do a twirl so that you can have a jolly good look at them. I've used the pattern from the Tudor Tailor, which is my go-to guide for all things Elizabethan and Tudor costuming. And it's based on a portrait of a woman called Elizabeth Vernon. And you can see in the portrait, she has a pair of bodies which have this sort of frill on them. I've used silk for the top fabric and canvas underneath, and they are boned with split willow canes. And there's also a busk in the front, a wooden busk, which is actually quite elongated because by this time we're going for this very sort of exaggerated shape. So that's my pair of bodies good to go. But next I need to create the farthingale. Now it's always a bit of a leap of faith creating a farthingale because we haven't actually got any examples that still remain with us from that time. We've got nothing to copy. Now I have made farthingales before, but never to this style. And well, this is my other farthingale. Quite different, isn't it? This is a Spanish farthingale. With this, it's a lot easier to create it because in her book, Patterns of Fashion, Janet Arnold has actually included all of the instructions from the pattern book of a 16th century tailor called Louis Alsager. And so I've been able to even use his pattern design to cut the pieces. It's a fairly simple structure. It's got hoops sewn into a fairly full skirt, and there's a bit of a gore at the side, but it's not too difficult to make actually. And I've used round willow canes to create it. And that's a good thing to use because the name farthingale comes from a Spanish word, verdugal. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's referring to the green willow cane that was used to create the shape. And when you use them, you do need to soak the willow a little bit to get it to bend. Now, Alsager tells us that we should use about 5 yards of fine silk. Now, I've actually used something a little bit more robust because she needs to take quite a lot of wear and tear when we're out and about. But I think this must have been a very high status garment. Not everyone had it. So I've added some ribbons, some satin ribbons to brighten it up a bit. So that's the Spanish farthingale. And it came to England, we think, about the time that Queen Catherine of Aragon arrived in the early 1500s. And there were lots of comments when she arrived on the very strange costume that she and her ladies were wearing. And it seems to me it was probably about 30 or perhaps more than 30 years before all the English ladies decided that they would like to walk around in a basket shaped like a bell. Fashion's strange, isn't it? And it doesn't stand still. By the time we get to the 1580s, towards the end of them, we have a new style in fashion. This is the French farthingale. Sometimes it's called the wheel farthingale, and sometimes it's called the drum farthingale. And if you look at all those portraits of those wonderful ladies of that period, you can see exactly why, because it does look as though they're walking around in a drum. So This is my first attempt to make one of these. Again, I've used the pattern from the Tudor tailor. And well, let me give you another little twirl so you can see how I've done. I always have to adjust the patterns quite a bit for my shape. I'm obviously not a standard size. And I did find when I first made this, it was dipping at the back quite a bit. So I've done a lot of playing around with what sort of bum roll to put underneath, and I've took out a little bit of the fabric. And I think this is probably about as good as it's going to be. And it feels quite good to wear, actually. So now I'm all ready to create the next part of the costume, which will be the underskirt, which fits over the top. And I'll do another video when I've got to that stage so you can see how I'm getting on. Thank you for watching.